My mother raised me to marry her daughter. The twist? She's not my mother. She's my kidnapper. I was 5 when my world collapsed. My father died in a car crash, and my mother, my real mother, Camila, told me she died of grief a few months later. Only now do I know that was a lie. The first of many. Back then, Camila wasn't yet Mom to me. She was just this distant, strict woman who showed up one day and moved into our home in Buenos Aires. Everyone said she was a family friend helping out. But the moment she arrived, she took over everything. She wasn't the warm, grieving figure you'd expect. She was composed. Cold. Calculating. She chose my clothes. Watched my friends. Controlled my school choices. Smiled rarely. And then there was Mariana, Camila's daughter. She was a few years younger than me, with big, dark eyes and a confidence I couldn't touch. Camila adored her. She'd always say, "Andrés, she's special. One day you'll see. She's your destiny." As a kid, I didn't question it. I just wanted love. Camila gave it, but in doses. Conditioned. Measured. If I obeyed, I got warmth. If I rebelled, I got silence. Her punishment wasn't shouting. It was absence. A dead-eyed stare across the dinner table. A month without a single hug. I started calling her Mama, without even realizing it. The real memories of my real mother began to fade like fog on glass. By the time I turned 18, I wanted freedom. A flat of my own. New air. But when I told Camila, she collapsed in the kitchen, clutching her chest. Doctors found nothing wrong. But Mariana cried every day. Said she couldn't bear the thought of being left behind. So I stayed. That's when Mariana changed. She began dressing differently. Looking at me longer. Sitting closer. Her hand would brush mine and linger. Her perfume clung to every pillow, every hallway. Camila said nothing. Just watched us from the kitchen window with that same ghost of a smile. I tried to fight it. She was my sister. Right. But we weren't related. Not really. And Camila encouraged it. When Mariana kissed me for the first time, it felt like permission. When I asked her out officially, Camila gave me a gold bracelet, hers from youth. "It's time," she whispered. "You were always meant to be hers." Our wedding was everything Camila ever wanted. Extravagant. Lavish. Almost royal. But the strangest thing? Camila cried harder than Mariana. She wept as if she were the bride. And now I know why. Because she orchestrated the whole thing. Because the woman who walked me down the aisle wasn't my mother. She was my captor. And Mariana? She was the final piece of her plan. A week after the wedding, I received a letter that shattered everything I believed about my past. It arrived in a plain white envelope. No return address. No stamp. Just my name, Andrés, scrawled in a shaky hand. Camila brought it in herself, smiling like nothing in the world was wrong. "Fan mail already?" she joked. I didn't laugh. Something about the envelope made my skin crawl. I waited until Mariana left for her yoga class and Camila was distracted in the garden. Then I opened it. Inside was a photo. Old. Faded. A woman with hazel eyes and dark waves of hair stood in a hospital room, holding a newborn. I didn't need anyone to tell me. It was me. I knew those eyes. I felt them. The handwriting on the back made my stomach turn. "Your mother loved you more than life. She didn't leave you. She was taken from you." No signature. Nothing else. I stared at that photo for hours, heart pounding like a war drum. I flipped it over again and again, trying to make sense of it. Camila told me my mother died after Dad. That she found me. But now, doubt bloomed like poison ivy in my chest. That night I didn't sleep. I waited until Mariana passed out beside me, soft breath, perfect face, peace I no longer trusted, and then snuck into the attic. Camila kept everything locked. Every drawer, every cabinet. But she had one old trunk she thought I'd never be curious about. Inside, hospital records, old passports, newspaper clippings from Cordoba. One headline made my vision blur. Local woman dies in apartment fire. Child presumed dead. Date, 21 years ago. Name of the woman? Lucia Moreno. My mother. But I remember that night now. Vaguely. A scream. Smoke. A hand pulling me through a window. I thought it was a dream. It wasn't. Camila saved me? No. Camila took me. Under a false name, she disappeared with a grieving widower's child and moved us to Buenos Aires. She cut ties with everyone. Rewrote our history. Became Mom. Suddenly, her obsession with controlling my future made sense. The way she pushed Mariana on me. Groomed us. Conditioned us. I wasn't just her stepson. I was her project. And Mariana, my wife, was the final prize. I stared at the old photo of my real mother again, and whispered, "I'm so sorry. The woman who loved me was buried with a lie. And now, I was married to the daughter of the woman who destroyed her. But this isn't the worst part. The worst part is, I still didn't know how far Camila was willing to go to keep her secret buried. I thought finding the truth would free me. I didn't expect it to make me a prisoner in my own marriage." The morning after I found the documents, I couldn't look at Camila the same way. She made breakfast like always, perfect coffee, avocado toast cut into neat little triangles, a soft hum under her breath like nothing had changed. Like she hadn't stolen my entire life and rebuilt it in her image. I sat across from her, watching, studying her every move. The way she looked up and smiled like she hadn't rewritten my childhood. Like she hadn't raised me just to deliver me, like a sacrificial lamb, to her daughter. And then there was Mariana. Still glowing from the honeymoon. Still texting her friends about wedding photos and how Andrés finally became hers. She kissed me like a wife. Touched me like a lover. But now, I couldn't separate the affection from the manipulation. Because if Camila raised me to be Mariana's husband, then what, exactly, was Mariana raised to be? A partner? Or a predator? I tried to act normal. To pretend. But Mariana noticed. Of course she did. That night, in bed, she traced circles on my chest with her fingers, whispering, "You've been quiet. What's wrong?" I wanted to scream everything. But I just said, "Tired." She leaned in, lips brushing my ear. "You're mine now. Don't forget that." It wasn't flirtation. It was possession. And it chilled me to the bone. The next day, I skipped work. I made a 4-hour drive to a nursing home on the outskirts of Rosario. The address had been tucked inside the envelope along with the photo. No explanation. Just a name, Nana Rosa. I remembered her vaguely. A warm voice. Gentle hands. She used to sing to me when my parents fought. She was waiting for me when I arrived, as if she knew I was coming. "You found the photo," she said. I sat across from her, not trusting my voice. She took my hand in her paper-thin fingers. I tried to fight her. After Lucia died, I begged the authorities not to let Camila near you. But she lied. Said she was your guardian. That Lucia had left a will. There was no will, I said. Rosa nodded. Exactly. But she forged one. She was always clever. Cold. Your mother suspected something, Andrés. Camila was obsessed with your father. When he died, she snapped. Took you. Burned the apartment to make it look like you both died. My throat tightened. Why? She looked me in the eye. Because you were the perfect seed. She couldn't control your father, so she raised his son to love her daughter. I felt like vomiting. Everything, my school, my career, the serendipitous love story with Mariana, had been part of Camila's script. I never had a chance. I stood to leave, and Rosa squeezed my hand one last time. She won't let you go, Andrés. Be careful. You were never her son. You were her plan. As I drove home, rain tapped the windshield like fingers warning me to turn around. But it was too late. Because when I got back, Camila was waiting in the hallway. And she was holding the photograph. She was holding the photo like a weapon. But the real weapon was her silence. I froze in the doorway. My clothes were soaked from the storm, but I barely felt it. Camila stood at the end of the hallway, framed by the soft glow of a chandelier. The photo trembled slightly in her hand, whether from age or fury, I couldn't tell. For a moment, we just stared at each other. No words. No explanations. Then she spoke. "You've been digging." Her voice was calm. Too calm. Like she'd rehearsed this moment. I said nothing. I didn't need to. We both knew the truth was already out. She walked slowly toward me, heels echoing off the marble floor. Each step was a metronome counting down to some unseen disaster. When she reached me, she held the photo up between us. "Do you know what I see when I look at this?" she asked. I said nothing. "I see a woman who didn't deserve you. A weak, scattered soul who couldn't survive after your father died. She gave up. I didn't." "She didn't give up," I said, my voice low. "You burned her out of my life." Her lips curled. "She would have ruined you. I gave you discipline, elegance, a future. Do you think Mariana would have even looked at you if I hadn't raised you right?" I felt something crack in my chest. A quiet, steady rupture. "That's what this was about?" I asked. "Turning me into her fantasy husband?" Camila stepped even closer, her perfume overwhelming, jasmine and something darker underneath. "I turned you into a man worthy of my daughter. That was my gift. Everything I did for love." I laughed. Bitter. Shaky. "That wasn't love. That was control." She looked at me, eyes glistening. "No, Andrés. Control is what I'm about to lose if you keep pushing." There it was. The mask slipping. I took a step back, and her expression shifted instantly. Panic? Rage? I couldn't tell. She clenched the photo tighter, then tore it in half. "You think the past matters now?" she hissed. "You're married. The life I built for you is real. Mariana loves you. And you love her." My silence was her answer. She shook her head slowly. "You don't get to walk away from this. I've buried too many truths to let you destroy everything." I turned to leave. "You tell her," she said, voice suddenly cold and flat. "And I will tell her what you did when you were 16. I stopped in my tracks. Heart frozen. She smirked. "You think I didn't see you that night?" I turned to face her. "You're bluffing. Try me." That was when I understood. Camila didn't just create the world I lived in. She also made sure she held every weapon inside it. Secrets. Guilt. Shame. All tucked neatly under her control. This wasn't just about protecting Mariana. It was about keeping me in the cage she'd crafted since the day she took me. But I wasn't that boy anymore. I just had to play the long game now. Like her. I didn't confront. I didn't scream. I did what she taught me to do: observe, adapt, and wait. After that night, I stopped resisting. On the surface. At breakfast, I smiled. I kissed Mariana's cheek. I even let Camila refill my coffee like nothing had changed. I played the role so perfectly, even Mariana commented, "You're finally starting to feel like my husband." Inside, I was colder than ever. You see, when someone builds your world around lies, the worst thing you can do to them is let them think you still believe in it. So I played along. But I watched everything. Camila had routines. Precise ones. She gardened at 7 a.m., answered mysterious calls at 2 p.m. in the sunroom, and drank a glass of red wine every night after Mariana fell asleep. The way she locked her drawer after reading her journal. The way she triple-checked the security system, like she wasn't just protecting us from intruders, but from escape. Mariana was different. She was gentler than her mother, but just as carefully molded. She wasn't evil. She was raised in a fantasy, Grew to believe I was hers before we even met. I started to see how trapped she was too. The first piece of my plan began with the family lawyer, Mr. Borda. The man who helped with the house, the wedding, the prenup I supposedly insisted on. Camila trusted him, of course she did. She practically raised his niece. So I paid him a visit. Camila doesn't know I'm here, I said. And if she finds out, you'll be hearing from the judge, not me. He stiffened immediately. What's this about? He asked. I want everything she's touched re-examined. Guardianship records. Custody transfers. School applications. I want to know when the lies started, and who helped her keep them legal. He went pale. That's, Andrés, you don't understand the consequences. You'd be destroying your own marriage. I leaned in. That's the plan. By the end of the week, I had copies of documents I wasn't supposed to see. A forged power of attorney from when I was 6. A transfer of custody signed by a judge who died under sudden cardiac failure the next month. A deleted adoption request that never got processed because of a clerical error. This wasn't just obsession. It was infrastructure. Camila had built her own reality, paper by paper, lie by lie. And it was all about to collapse. But I needed one more piece. Mariana. If I exposed everything, she would break. I couldn't do that to her. Not yet. I needed her to see it on her own. So I left something for her. One morning, while she showered, I slid the photo, restored and reprinted, from Rosa's envelope into her drawer. Along with it, I placed a handwritten note. There's a truth you've never been told. Look at the woman in this photo. Then ask your mother what happened to her. I knew she'd find it. Mariana never let anything stay hidden too long. Not in her world. I just didn't expect what would happen next. That night, she didn't speak to me. She didn't cry. She didn't sleep in our bed. Instead, she went to the garden, where Camila was waiting. And I watched through the window as Mariana, shaking, held up the photo. And screamed. When I heard Mariana scream her mother's name, it wasn't pain. It was betrayal. Raw. Unfiltered. From my bedroom window, I watched the two silhouettes in the garden, the daughter, trembling with a crumpled photo in her hand. The mother, motionless, a statue of stone and secrets. Mariana's voice cracked through the silence. Who is she? Camila didn't answer. Who is this woman, Mama? Don't lie to me. I couldn't see her face from where I stood, but I knew what expression Camila wore. The one I'd seen so many times as a child. Calm. Controlled. Like she already had a story prepared for every possible explosion. But this time, the story didn't come. Mariana stepped closer. Her voice shook. She looks like me. Same nose. Same chin. Is this Andrés' mother? That was the first time I heard Camila falter. Just a whisper. She was no one. Wrong answer. Mariana's voice cracked like glass. No one? You told me Andrés was abandoned. You said his parents died. You said... And then she stopped herself. I saw it. The shift. The machinery in her head began to click. Not just about me, but about her whole life. The coincidences. The way we were raised like puzzle pieces meant to fit. The way her mother cried harder at our wedding than she did at her own husband's funeral. Camila reached out to touch her shoulder. Mariana recoiled. Don't. Just don't. She stormed back into the house, shoulders heaving. She didn't look at me as she passed. Not even when I called her name. She locked herself in the guest room. That's where she stayed. For 3 days. No dinners. No texts. Not even footsteps down the hallway. Camila tried once, just once, to bring her food. The tray came back untouched. And then, on the 4th morning, I found Mariana sitting at the kitchen table, hair tied back, a file in front of her. She looked up at me. No tears now. Just cold, focused silence. Who gave you this? She asked, tapping the file. Inside, all the same documents I got from the lawyer. Forged custody. Judge's signature. Even Camila's personal letter to a school official calling me her biological nephew. Mariana had dug deeper than I expected. I sat across from her. No lies. Your mother built a life for us, I said. But it started with a crime. Mariana looked away. She always said love required sacrifice. She didn't sacrifice, I replied. She stole. She didn't argue. She didn't defend. Instead, she said something that made my blood turn to ice. When I was 12, she showed me a picture of you and said, "That's your future." I stared at her. She planned it that far back? I whispered. Mariana nodded. I thought it was destiny. Like a fairy tale. But now I wonder if I ever had a choice. Her eyes met mine. And what about you? Did you ever love me? Or were you just playing along? It was the hardest question I'd ever had to answer. So I told her the truth. At first, I didn't question it. Then I loved the girl I thought you were. But now... I paused. I don't know who any of us are anymore. She stood. Quiet. Measured. And then she said, "I'm going to Cordoba. I want to meet Rosa." I watched her walk away, keys in hand. But Camila was already waiting by the door. And this time, she wasn't crying. She was blocking it. Camila never raised her voice. She didn't need to. Her power was always in silence. But this time, silence wouldn't save her. Mariana stood in front of the door, keys clenched in her fists like a weapon. Camila was already there. As if she knew. Her arms were folded. Not blocking Mariana physically, but making it clear she wouldn't move. "You're not going to Cordoba," she said quietly. Mariana's jaw tightened. "You don't get to tell me that anymore." "I do," Camila replied, voice eerily calm. "Because I am still your mother." "No," Mariana said. "You're a woman who built a life out of lies. Who raised me to fall in love with a boy she stole from a corpse." That made Camila flinch. Just barely. "You don't understand what Lucia was like," Camila said, eyes hardening. "She was weak. Lost. After Jorge died, she wanted to give Andrés up. She couldn't handle the responsibility." Mariana shook her head, stunned. "So you took him? Lied to me? Controlled our entire childhood? You fabricated my marriage." Camila stepped closer. "I saved him. And I gave you everything. A perfect man. A perfect life." Mariana's voice broke. "It was never mine. It was yours." They stood in silence for a moment. Then Mariana laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "All those years you told me Andrés was special. That we were made for each other. It was never about love. It was about control. You raised me to marry your obsession." Camila's face twisted. "I raised you to be worthy of him." "No, Mama. You raised me to be a puppet." Her hand tightened on the keys. "I'm going," Mariana said. "I need to hear the truth from someone who didn't script it." And then Camila said the most dangerous thing yet. "If you leave now, don't come back." That was it. No shouting. No tears. Just exile. Mariana's voice dropped to a whisper. "That's the first real thing you've ever said to me." She stepped past her mother. Camila didn't stop her. I watched from the stairs, half expecting a final word, a plea, a scream. But Camila just stood there. Frozen. Alone. Eyes locked on the door as it clicked shut behind her daughter. She turned to me. "You should have stayed quiet." I looked at her, dead in the eyes. "I learned silence from the best. But I'm done being your student." She walked away without another word. That was the moment I knew something had shifted forever. Camila hadn't lost the battle. She had lost her empire. I thought Mariana would return broken. But what she found in Cordoba broke something in me. 3 days passed. No calls. No texts. Just silence. Camila moved through the house like a phantom. She didn't ask about Mariana. Didn't acknowledge her absence. It was as if her daughter had been erased the moment she stepped out that door. But I knew better. Camila wasn't grieving. She was calculating. So was I. I spent those days digging deeper, cross-referencing documents, timelines. Camila's financials showed frequent trips to Mexico. Business retreats, she claimed, but always to the same city, Merida. Mariana's birthplace. Something told me Mariana's past wasn't as clean as hers either. Then the call came. Unknown number. Rosario area code. I picked up. My voice cracked. Mariana? But it wasn't her. It was Rosa. She's here, she said. Andrés, you need to come. I left that night. By the time I arrived, the sun was low and the sky bruised purple. Rosa greeted me at the door, but her face was different now, tired, eyes sunken from what she'd heard. She found something, she whispered. A letter. I stepped into the living room. Mariana sat in silence. In her hands, a thin, yellowed envelope. No address. Just 3 words in elegant script. Para mi hija. To my daughter. Is that? I started. Mariana nodded. Lucia wrote this before she died. Rosa kept it. She was scared Camila would destroy it. Her hands shook as she passed it to me. Inside was a single sheet of paper, folded carefully. Lucia's handwriting was soft, almost hesitant. It read, "If you are reading this, then Camila has succeeded. She always wanted what I had, my son, my husband, my life. I knew she was dangerous. I told Jorge. He never listened. If I don't survive, tell Andrés I loved him. And Mariana, if you ever find him, please protect him from her. He deserves truth, not chains." I looked up. Mariana was crying. She knew, she whispered. She knew even I would be a part of it. Camila must have told her we were childhood friends or that we were meant to be. "No," I said. "Lucia believed in you. She believed you'd do the right thing." Mariana covered her face, tears slipping between her fingers. "I feel like I've never made a single decision for myself," she choked. "My school, my friends, even who I loved. It was all her. I thought I was confident, independent. But I was just following a script." I sat beside her. "You didn't write the first page," I said gently. "But you still get to write the ending." She looked at me. "Do you still love me?" she asked. That was the hardest question of all. "I don't know," I whispered. "But I believe you. And right now, that matters more." We left Cordoba together. Quiet. Numb. United by truth, not passion. But while we were gone, Camila wasn't idle. When we returned, the house was empty. Her room, cleared out. Closet bare. Jewelry. Passports. Documents. All gone. But on the kitchen counter, she left something chilling. Our wedding photo. And behind it, in red pen. "You broke the story. But I still own the ending." Camila vanished like smoke. But her fingerprints were still on everything. She didn't take clothes. She took leverage. The safe was empty. Documents, hard drives, backup IDs. She left behind just enough to remind us she had planned this all along. Mariana sat at the kitchen table, the photo trembling in her hands. "She's running," she whispered. I nodded. "But not from the law. From us." She looked at me, eyes sharp now. "We expose her." It wasn't a question. It was a declaration. We started with the lawyer. Borda tried to ghost us, until Mariana called him from my phone and said just 2 words. "Red pen." He called back 10 minutes later. Voice shaking. "She called me 3 days ago," he confessed. "Said she was going away. Said if anyone came looking, she'd make sure secrets were shared." "What secrets?" I asked. He hesitated. "She has files on both of you. Photos. Medical records. Videos." "Videos?" Mariana echoed. He cleared his throat. Surveillance. From your teenage years. Private moments. Things no mother should ever watch, let alone record. My blood ran cold. She hadn't just raised us. She'd studied us. Archived us. Prepared for the day we'd betray her. She's threatening to leak them? I asked. She said if you ruin her, she'll ruin you both. That was her final weapon, shame. It would destroy Mariana's public image, her job, her name. It would turn me into a headline. Groomed husband of stepsister, raised by fake mother. No one would see nuance. They'd see scandal. I hung up and turned to Mariana. We don't have to do this, I said. We can disappear too. Start over. Change our names. She looked at me, eyes burning. No, she said. She doesn't get to vanish while we carry the stain. So we made a list. Where she might run. Who might protect her. What she left behind. Mexico? Possible. Her birthplace. Panama? Likely, she had a bank account there. But then Mariana opened her laptop and searched for something else. A forgotten email Camila once used when she helped Mariana apply for grad school. We tried logging in with Camila's usual password patterns. On the 5th attempt, her wedding anniversary, it opened. The inbox was empty. The drafts were not. There were 12 messages, never sent. Each to different news outlets. Each with attachments. Screenshots. Old footage. Whispers into a baby monitor. A journal scan labeled, Project Andrés. One message had a subject line that made me sit down. The truth about my son-in-law. She wasn't bluffing. She had everything. But here's what she didn't know. Mariana had one file of her own. A voice memo. From when she was 17. A conversation recorded accidentally between Camila and a friend from Merida. Camila's voice. He's already perfect. Smart. Loyal. Obedient. By the time he's 25, she won't even have to try. He'll choose her himself. Mariana clicked. Forward. Sent it to our lawyer. Our backup drive. A journalist she trusted. Then she looked at me. She groomed us, she said. She planned our marriage before we even met. And now? I asked. Mariana exhaled. Now we plan her downfall. She raised me to be silent. I chose to speak. That's how I ended her. We didn't wait. The next morning, Mariana went live. She posted a 5-minute video, straight to her verified account. Calm. Composed. No drama, just truth. She started with a line I'll never forget. I married a man I was raised to love. I didn't know I was born into a lie. She laid it out, Camila's obsession with control, the forged documents, the stolen childhoods, the psychological manipulation. She played the voice memo. And then she said, My mother groomed us both. Not for abuse, but for a life she could control. And when we found out, she ran. It went viral within hours. Hashtag Project Andrés was trending by nightfall. Journalists dug deeper. Photos surfaced of Camila at fake wellness retreats, using alias names in Mexico and Colombia. A reporter from La Nación confirmed she had crossed into Panama using forged ID. Interpol issued a quiet notice. But Camila? Gone. Vanished like fog. In her place, she left only the carnage of her plan. That week, Mariana and I filed a joint civil suit, naming Camila for fraud, unlawful guardianship, and psychological abuse. The authorities couldn't arrest her, yet, but the financial freezes started rolling in. Property seized. Bank accounts frozen. Her empire, brick by brick, collapsed. And then, the letters started. From people like us. Men and women who had been molded, shaped, forced into identities built on someone else's fantasy. People raised by narcissists. By manipulators. By architects of control. The video had become more than just our story. It was theirs too. And us? We didn't fall in love again. That part didn't return. But we found something deeper. Complicity. Survival. Understanding. We lived together for 6 more months. Quietly. Away from the noise. Then one morning, Mariana packed her bags. She kissed my cheek. "I need to figure out who I am," she said. "Without her. Without you." "Just me?" I nodded. "You deserve that." We didn't say goodbye. We didn't need to. As she drove away, I sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Camila once smiled like a queen. I opened her last letter. Just 4 words scribbled in red ink. "You still needed me." I burned it. And watched the ash scatter like dust from a dying empire.